after the Dussehra rallies, competing Dussehra rallies of the Shiv Sena here in Mumbai, one thing is clear. The one question that has been answered is that Eknath Shinde's rally at BKC did have the larger crowds. Now, the second question that needs to be answered is, who will get the Dhanush? That is the symbol of the Shiv Sena. Officially today, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Eknath Shinde, has approached the Supreme Court saying that the symbol of the bow and arrow, that's the Dhanush, should be given to him. Now, Uddhav Thackeray has been given time till Saturday to come to the Election Commission and explain to them or to the Election Commission as to why the Dhanush actually belongs to him and his faction of the Shiv Sena and not to Eknath Shinde. Let me go straight across to our guests who are joining us this evening. Sanjay Jha is an author. He lives in Mumbai, tracks Maharashtra's politics very closely. Vaibhav Purandare is a senior editor at Times of India. He is also an author. And Namit Saxena is an advocate. Vaibhav, since you track the Shiv Sena so closely here, I'm going to come to you first. What is the precedence? The precedence we know, at least we know for the LJP, was that the party symbol was frozen. When the family was warring, the party symbol was frozen by the Election Commission and both of them were given different party symbols. Is that what is likely to happen in the Election Commission? Of course, it may get challenged, but is that the most likely scenario right now?
See, the EC need not have decided in such a great hurry. But the reason it is asking the Uddhav Thackeray faction to respond immediately by 2 o'clock on Saturday is that there's a by-election coming up in Andheri East in Mumbai. And so the Shiv Sena matter, which is in any case a tricky issue, the Supreme Court itself called it a very tricky issue, has become trickier because what does the Election Commission do when it has to take an urgent decision with an election around the corner? So obviously the Election Commission needs time to look at the documents and to figure out which faction of the party has a majority in order to establish which is the real Shiv Sena. But with an election around the corner, I feel that the only decision it can take, which is immediate and instant, and with the last date for filing nominations for that particular election being October 14th, that is just a week from now, the decision will be in all likelihood to freeze the party symbol.
But Sanjay Jha, this is the argument, and we have Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, who's just responded on that entire issue, and he's saying that since Mr. Eknath Shinde quit voluntarily and everyone else with him quit voluntarily, I mean, it was their choice. They walked away. Therefore, the symbol belongs to us because we are the real party. Is that something you would agree with? Because you know, this has been said over and over again by the Election Commission that the principle of majority will apply here. And the majority in terms of the MLAs and MPs, as far as the Shiv Sena is concerned, Mr. Jha, is with who? Is with Eknath Shinde.
Well, Shreya, I think this is a very complex conundrum, and I'll tell you why. The Election Commission will also have to factor in what is the support base of either Mr. Shinde or Mr. Thackeray. Because see, Uddhav will probably have, in my opinion, prima facie, a bigger support of the Congress of the Shiv Sena workers, the registered party members, and that is a very critical factor, unlike just the MLAs, which Mr. Shinde managed to kind of break away from the Shiv Sena. So how does the Election Commission establish whether Mr. Shinde may have the control of the legislators, but does he have the control of the party apparatus is another critical question. The second one, which is again very, in my opinion, up in the air, is what Uddhav has legitimately raised, that the disqualification of the MLAs who basically, kind of under the purview of the anti-defection law, well, does that come into play as well? Because at the end of the day, that's what Uddhav mentioned. His party said that they defied the party whip and they went ahead and actually quit the party and formed another alternative formation. And I think the accusations made there are, once again, up to the Supreme Court to take a quick call on. Now it's gone to a constitutional bench. We don't know how quickly will they respond to it. So I see a clear stalemate, and I'll agree with what I think Vaibhav mentioned earlier, that in the circumstances, it might be a more circumspect bet to actually, kind of keep the symbol under freeze till the Supreme Court passes its verdict. Because you can have a very ugly atmosphere in Mumbai. Because if you heard the speech of Eknath Shinde in particular, it was almost deliberately provocative and quite, directly attacking Uddhav and almost challenging him on holding his own father's legacy. In Mumbai, it is very evident to me so far, and it can change, I don't know. But I think the Shiv Sena that is considered to be the original Shiv Sena is the Uddhav Thackeray faction. And I personally believe that Uddhav Thackeray's faction is the real Shiv Sena. Whether it technically works with the Election Commission of the Supreme Court, that only time will tell.
But Namit Saxena, how is it technically, how is Uddhav Thackre's Sena the real Sena, given the fact that most of the MLAs and MPs are with Mr. Eknath Shinde, and Mr. Eknath Shinde's camp, I believe, is also claiming that he has the signatures of 1,66,000 workers of the Shiv Sena. So it's not just the top brass, it's not just the elected representatives, even the party worker is with me, is the claim that Eknath Shinde is making.
See, it is important to understand what the election commission will look at this juncture to decide, which faction will have the symbol. Now, the election commission will have to focus on how many members the two factions, Shinde faction and the Uddhav Thackeray faction, have in the organization as well as in the legislative wing. Now, this will also include the number of members they have in the assembly, state assembly, as well as in the parliament. And both sides have to submit their material in form of an affidavit. Now, what the election commission has done right now is they have called the election commission has called Uddhav Thackeray to please give us whatever documents you want to give us in form of an affidavit, and we'll decide accordingly. And also, interestingly, the election commission is also empowered under para 15 of the order, the 1968 order, to look into the political activities of the particular faction, also of the rival faction, both of them. So this is, as both of the co-panelists also pointed out, this is a tricky situation right now as to what will election commission, how will election commission, reach a conclusion, because they have to call, material from both the sides. Now, similarly, when we see, like you cited the example of LJP, Lok Janshakti Party, and they froze it. In my view, at this juncture, freezing the election symbol and, giving them alternate symbols should not work. Because see, an election should not run on interim orders. As the co-panelists pointed out that Andheri East elections are due to be conducted. An election of such nature by-election of such nature cannot be conducted on interim orders of freezing for the time being, and therefore looking at after, therefore deciding thereafter. Also, I don't agree with Mr. Sanjay Jha that in the election commission or the Supreme Court should decide it at the earliest. See, these are both constitutional functionaries. You can't have, you pass the ball to me, I pass the ball to you. The election commission is constitutionally bound to decide such matters. The election commission should take a view either way. Either give it to Mr. Thackeray or give it to
Vaibhav, correct me.
The Shinde faction.
You're right, but Vaibhav, correct me if I'm wrong. The Supreme Court is usually, it doesn't have the compulsions that political parties have. For example, the LJP symbol issue, it remains frozen. And it has still not been settled by the Supreme Court. My question to you is this: is it looking like it's going to be advantage Shinde from where we stand right now, given the numbers he has?
Yes, definitely it does look like that. Since you mentioned the Supreme Court, let me mention here that in the Shiv Sena case, Uddhav Thackeray had moved the Supreme Court saying that the Election Commission has no right to decide this particular issue.
Correct.
Because the issue of disqualification is still pending before the court. And the Supreme Court has made it absolutely clear that the Election Commission has every right to decide this issue, and the Election Commission itself said in the SC that this is an intra-party dispute and it has nothing to do with the ongoing proceedings on disqualification. So that matter is settled. The ball is in the court of the Election Commission, and the Supreme Court has squarely put it in the court of the Election Commission. So the Election Commission can completely decide whether it's an interim order or a permanent kind of final order. Secondly, I want to make it very clear here that I disagree with the statement made here that just for an election, a by-election, the Election Commission should not give any sort of interim order. Now, this means that you're completely dismissing a by-election. And I think that would be absolutely the wrong thing to do, especially in a very thorny dispute such as this one. because one faction of the Shiv Sena can take the symbol and fight the election, and if it wins that election, it can claim the support of voters and claim a higher moral ground on that basis in order to further press its claim on the election symbol, on the poll symbol. So it is extremely tricky territory. Also, by-elections have this very funny thing that they can be extremely insignificant or they can have tremendous implications for the future. I will give you examples here. There was an election in Gorakhpur and Phulpur in 2018 after Yogi Adityanath and his deputy Keshav Prasad Maurya quit their seats. This was a Lok Sabha by-election, and the BSP and the SP got together and fought the election. Now, that sort of sent a message to the opposition that you can get together for the 2019 elections, and you can fight it. So it had implications for the future, regardless of what happened in the 2019 elections. The Mahagathbandhan failed, etc., etc. But it did have implications for the future. The Shiv Sena's example is a classic example in point. Two by-elections in the history of the Shiv Sena have had tremendous implications on its future. One was in 1970, when Vamanrao Mahadik got elected from Lower Parel. That was the election that actually changed the Shiv Sena's future after the murder of a Communist Party legislator, Krishna Desai. That by-election in Mumbai saw the emergence of the Shiv Sena as a powerful political party. The second most important by-election was in 1987, which Uddhav Thackeray fought openly on the issue of Hindutva. Actually, it changed the direction of Indian politics, because after the Shiv Sena won the election on the basis of Hindutva, the BJP took it up openly at the national level. So it can have tremendous implications. A simple by-election, what appears like a simple by-election, can have a lot of implications. And in a case like this, the Election Commission will have to be very careful about who gets the symbol. The best thing may be, therefore,
to freeze it.
Would be to freeze it. And Sanjay Jha may have his own convictions on the issue. And convictions are one thing. The EC has to go by who has the strength in the legislative wing and in the party's organizational wing. And the EC needs time for that.
But Sanjay Jha, so essentially the point being made and the point of the entire debate is that he who has the Dhanush has the legitimacy, right? Sanjay Jha, yes, Uddhav has the surname, but it's very clear that he doesn't have the support of the cadre or the MLAs or the MPs anymore.
Shreya,
he possibly needs to reinvent himself and reinvent his party, but this battle he may have lost.
I'll tell you why I don't agree with you. When it comes to Mumbai, I don't think the Eknath Shinde faction has a chance against Uddhav Thackeray.
But Mumbai is not Maharashtra, and Maharashtra is not Mumbai, right?
No, I agree. Now let me elaborate that further. I think Eknath Shinde definitely has his own stronghold areas, but they are restricted to the Thane belt and an extension of that near Raigad. I still believe that the rest of Maharashtra and definitely Mumbai, because Mumbai has been really the linchpin of the entire, political strategy of the Shiv Sena and Maharashtra. And I think in the BMC elections, you will definitely find the Uddhav faction right ahead. What is happening is that the Eknath Shinde faction is played into the BJP's hands. You see, the one who will have the last laugh will be the BJP, because with the split Shiv Sena vote, even if the Eknath Shinde faction takes 20% of the votes away, it's clearly advantage BJP, which is why I think the Congress and the NCP and the other Shiv Sena element of the MVA need to figure out, are they going to fight this election together, or are they going to kind of, work on their own political identity? But the other proposition that the lawyer mentioned, I think, is, in my opinion, erroneous. There is no obligation the Election Commission to give the election symbol before the the by-election coming up in the first week of November, because this is going to have a very serious repercussion on the perception point. Even if it's if it's given permanently, what happens if the Supreme Court tomorrow disqualifies these MLAs? It is a constitutional bench. And don't forget, Shreya, they're aware of how Operation Lotus played. They're also aware of the fact that there was a lot of immoral, unethical conduct involved behind the, the entire exodus of the MLAs to Guwahati and Goa, etc. So this game is far from over.
It is certainly far from over.
There is a legislative issue, there's a constitutional ethics issue, and above all, the public of Mumbai who may decide the fortune of both the parties.
All right, but the issue is far from over, as you're saying correctly. A large chunk of the matter is in the Supreme Court. A part of the matter is in the Election Commission. Let's see what happens in the Election Commission tomorrow. But Uddhav has already pretty much made it public what he plans to say to the Election Commission. That, look, these guys quit, walked away voluntarily. Therefore, the symbol belongs to us, not to them. Let's see what view the Election Commission takes of that. We'll leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Always good to have you guys on the show. Thank you very much indeed. As I wrap, this is the last part of the show. Viral